the first kid you ever worked with and the first dance that you ever choreographed for a kid.
It was your daughter.
And it was my daughter. And that was the first dance video that ever went viral. Overnight, it had 1 million views.
Correct.
Which even in today's standards is not that common.
So I teamed up with the creator and producer of the MTV Video Music Awards, and we created this entire show where it was basically following me and my dancers around. Once my first dance class video went viral, anything I put out after that continued to go viral like crazy.
You have worked with so many big entertainers, artists. Who was your favorite to work for?
I probably had the best time with...
Who's your least favorite?
You are not asking me this question.
In life, there's a blueprint for everything. There's no need to start over. Hear from industry leaders, those at the top of their fitness journey, and real estate gurus. They tell you exactly how they did it. All you have to do is listen, learn, and execute. This is The Blueprint with Brad Rice.
Hey everybody, I am absolutely thrilled today to have my guest, a good friend and an icon in the mortgage business, Tricia Miranda. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her if you don't already know. And all you have to do is Google her and you'll find out. But she has nearly 500 million views on YouTube. Tricia has been really firmly established in the dance world to be known as the Queen of Dance. And she has really both digitally and professionally just kind of done it all. Her work spans from music videos to live performances, TV shows, and commercials. She has choreographed for the world's biggest stars. So let me just name a few of them. Beyoncé, Missy Elliott, Nicki Minaj, Jennifer Lopez, and many, many others. So she's made her mark as also a series judge on CBS's Come Dance With Me. She choreographed for hit projects like Ice Spice, Nicki Minaj's Big FU music video, and ABC's The Rookie, which I didn't even know that when I was looking this up. Her choreography has been on shows like So You Think You Can Dance and America's Got Talent and countless other shows, really, just all over the place, including Grammys and MTV's VMAs, right? Anyway, her influence really has shaped the whole dance world and inspired literally generations of dancers. And I am super lucky and proud to call you a good friend, and welcome to The Blueprint.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, you act all shy.
Thanks for having me. I know. Yes, you said I better be an icon in the mortgage business.
Yes, that's me. Well, cool. Hey, I want to just start by talking about like your path, because you started dancing when you were 4, which is a year younger than when Casey started dancing. So Casey being my daughter, for those of you who don't know, Tricia's had a huge influence over her life. But you started when you were 4.
I did.
And you're from Arizona, and specifically Yuma. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
But yeah, how did you start dancing?
So I got into like a ballet tap combo when I was 4, but I started competing when I was 5. So competition kid, ballet, tap, jazz. We didn't have hip hop in our little small town at all. So I hadn't done hip hop yet, but competed everywhere. I got some awards through some of the biggest conventions that I was a part of. I remember Joe Tremaine, who is obviously the name and the owner and founder of Tremaine Dance Conventions, one of the biggest in the entire world, and that was the convention I grew up on. He gave me the Future Star Award when I was like 17, and I was in this like little magazine, and I think I got like $100 or $200. And I remember seeing him when I got older, and this was after I had already like booked jobs, and I went up to him and I was like, Joe, I am a star. I became a star. I was like, you gave me this award when I was like 17. And he was laughing. But yeah, so then I started hip hop classes in Arizona, teaching them at the age of 19. And
Was this for like a dance company
this
or a
was
studio?
well, this was at Dancers Workshop. So this was the studio I grew up at. But I guess before that, I co-directed a ballet company at the age of 17 because our ballet directors were released, and the owner of the studio, Linda Farrar, she was like, can you do this with me? You know, I was one of the oldest company members that was still around, and I was one of the I think I was the strongest one at the time, and a choreographer already, her assistant already, and so I became a ballet choreographer, choreographed an entire 2-hour length Nutcracker ballet. So that was like my path at the time. And so once I started my own hip hop classes, they got really big in the town. And then I ended up leaving at 21 and moved here to LA by myself with no money, no friends.
Yeah, that's pretty bold.
Yeah.
So this was all really at the dance studio you grew up at.
Yeah.
They gave you an opportunity to teach and then ultimately choreograph there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's really interesting because, Laura, my wife, she had a dance studio, and that's how we met you, and she put that together for Casey. But it was interesting to see how the kids from that dance studio, that's kind of like the first step if you really want to make dance a career. And we talk about the blueprint here, like what was the blueprint. So I want to get through the whole story.
Okay.
But so if somebody is dancing and they're like, hey, I have such a passion for this, I want to make this a part of my life, and I want to be an icon like Trisha. How did she do that? So this was kind of step one. It was I work at or I dance at a studio, mm-hmm. and then I start teaching, and then I start the choreography path. But you also had a big dance career.
I did.
So I didn't know this before, but how did you coin yourself the Chola Ballerina?
Well, what's funny is that I didn't. And I think I just randomly said it in an interview when I was younger, like in my 20s. I think I was making a joke out of it because when I was still in Yuma dancing and I was part of that ballet company, I always had like this edge to me. Like I never looked like a proper ballerina. Like I would always wear I'm Hispanic. And so I ran with not the best crowd. So I've always worn these big hoop earrings. I used to wear burgundy lipstick. I've always had black eyeliner. But back in like 8th and 9th grade, the side of my head was shaved. And so, which was kind of a vibe when your hair's down and you're dressed in street clothes. But when it came to ballet classes and then even just being one of the leads in a ballet and your hair's tied back in a bun and you're in a tutu with your head shaved, you kind of look a little scary. But I always went to ballet class with my big gold hoop earrings, my burgundy lipstick, my black eyeliner, because that's just who I was. And so for me, I think during an interview, I was like, oh yeah, I was just like this Chola Ballerina, right? Because I was just like a Chola all through middle school and high school. But then I still went to ballet class, but I didn't take anything off. I just put my ballet clothes on and still just, from the neck up, I was still like a Chola. But then I had my little bun. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm like a Chola Ballerina. I made a joke about it. And then it ended up like, not only did it end up in like an interview and online, but it ended up on a backpack that I just received from this designer in Europe. And she sent me this incredible backpack, and it had my entire bio on it, like inscribed in the back. Wow. And then it like the top of it was titled like Chola Ballerina. I was like,
cool.
wait,
do you
what?
still have that backpack?
I do. I just got it like 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But back to what you were saying about starting and, making a career out of this, like, in our industry, not everyone comes from the dance studio. So there are a lot of street dancers that have become very, very big. Very big choreographers, very big household, names as far as dancers. There's been like break dancers and poppers that are huge, and they're icons in our business. They're actually legends in our business and never grew up in the dance studio. And so for me, I am kind of the fusion of both worlds because I grew up in a dance studio my entire life, just like Casey did. And then once I came out here, in 2001. It was like my biggest mission to look and dance like a street dancer and not look like a studio dancer doing hip hop.
Yeah.
So I would train with like the illest like street dancers from St. Louis, and they had never been in a dance class and they wanted to learn how to turn and jump. So I would teach them ballet and jazz, and they would teach me hip hop grooves from St. Louis. And we would stay up till like 4 a.m, ciphering in my little apartment, and we just exchanged information, and we did that for years. And so now, like, a lot of people, unless they know my story or unless I tell them, have no idea that I came from a dance studio, have no idea that I was a ballet director, like, ever.
Yeah, that's crazy, because if you think about what you said early on, you said you didn't have hip hop at your dance studio.
Yeah.
Yet, the main thing that you choreograph and you teach is hip hop.
It's the only thing I teach now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do jazz funk every now and then, but I mean, that's still in the commercial world. It's still considered hip hop. It's under the hip hop umbrella. It's just,
Got it. So, all right. So let's go back. You leave Yuma. At what point did you start this kind of makeup artist thing? Because I didn't know that about you either.
You didn't?
No.
Okay.
So you're certified.
I'm certified. Yeah. So the Rihanna, right? The artist, big, huge billionaire.
Are you a tech investor looking to shape the future of real estate? HomePie is the #1 for sale by owner marketplace, and we are revolutionizing the way homes are bought and sold. I'd love to hear from you. Just email invest@homepie.com and let's chat. Now back to the show.
Rihanna, right? The artist, big, huge billionaire. Her makeup artist, her personal makeup artist, and one of the creative directors of the Fenty makeup world, her name is Priscilla Ono. So she is this huge, huge makeup artist, icon in the business. And I actually went to her makeup school and graduated from there. Now, the story behind that, so I actually started hair and makeup back in Yuma when I was a kid. I would do hair and makeup for like people's formals and proms, because when I was competing, I didn't want my mom touching me. I'm a Capricorn. I'm very particular. Like, everything needs to be perfect. My mom just wasn't that girl. At 5, I started learning how to do my own hair. At 9, I started doing my own makeup. At 12, I started doing the company's hair and makeup. Like, I was just always like into that big time. So I had already done like hair and makeup for like formals and stuff like that. When I moved to LA, I started doing like freelance hair and makeup for dancers for their headshots and stuff like that. I wasn't certified yet. It wasn't until after transitioning, like I was like, I'm done dancing. Like, I had done everything you can think of in the dance world, danced for everybody in the world, everything. And I was like, I'm ready to be the creator. I'm ready to be behind the camera and do all that. So for me, it was really important to start from scratch, from the very bottom. I didn't want to continue dancing and then also try getting these choreography jobs. I wanted to be looked at as a choreographer only.
Yeah.
I did not want to be looked at as a dancer that was choreographing. That was like huge for me. But between that transition, I wasn't working. And I was like, I don't know if I'll ever work as a choreographer. This may not work for me. And my only other passion was makeup. So I was like, I mean, I'm not going home. I'm not moving back to Arizona. So maybe I'll just stay in the industry world, but be a makeup artist. And so I went to makeup school. And of course, the second I decide to do something else, I started booking choreography gigs while I was in school for makeup. But I was like, oh my God. But I ended up finishing, graduated like 100%. And I wanted so bad to assist Priscilla. And she was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. But then she never called me. And one day I reached out to her. I was like, just curious, like, why you've never called me to assist you? Like, is it something I could work on? She's like, honestly, Trisha, she's like, I just think it would be so disrespectful to have you be my assistant. She's like, you need to be choreographing these jobs that I'm doing makeup for, not being a makeup assistant.
Wow.
And I thought that was the coolest thing anyone's ever said to me. And then sure enough, at that time, I just started really blowing up as a choreographer.
Wow, that's great.
So
I love that
crazy.
story. So was your backup plan, really?
Yeah.
And as soon as you made the decision to do that, things started to happen.
Yeah.
But let's talk about how that transition happened, because that probably wasn't the easiest thing, going from, a dancer who was getting big jobs to choreography. And I pulled up some things online we'll take a look at together,
Oh my
because I want to kind of show you, some things that were kind of in your past, right?
Yeah.
And so you, first of all, I can't even believe, if you Google Tricia Miranda, the amount of photos that come up are, do you ever do this? Do you ever scroll
Heck
through?
no, how embarrassing.
Oh.
It's because I hate a lot of them.
Isn't that crazy?
Whoa.
Right?
That's what, ew.
This one here.
Yeah, I was like 12 right there.
Look at this.
Oh, wow.
Just
I've
years.
never done this. This
No?
is crazy.
But you remember every one of these, don't you?
100% I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's from Come Dance With Me.
Look at that.
Whoa.
I mean, it goes way back, right?
Oh, look
There's
at
your
Munchie.
weren't you shaved on?
Yeah, I was shaved right there too.
Yeah.
Casey.
There you go. So anyway, there's a lot online with you. But this is, you've had articles written about you going way back.
Which a lot of them I've never seen.
Have
which
you seen
is
this
crazy.
one? Just a small town girl taking
don't
over the world.
think so.
This was in 2017, October 2017. And it's the Huffington Post, right? And they talk about Yuma, they talk about you. Anyway, there's a lot of information here. And then you've got, take that down. How do you come with, let's see, who is Tricia Miranda from Come Dance With Me? And then this is that Chola Ballerina, right?
That's so weird.
Did you ever see this one?
No.
What is Come Dance With Me? That was a dance competition.
Yeah, Come Dance With Me was a dance competition on CBS that it's kind of, if you want to think of it as Dancing with the Stars meets So You Think You Could Dance, but it's done with a parent who's never had any dance training ever, competing with their child who is a dancer, but their child is very young and they're not professional kids. They're like, little kids, like between 9 and like maybe 14, 15, I would say. And so they pair up as a duo, kind of like Dancing with the Stars does. You take like a professional dancer and an actor or some type of influencer or athlete who's not a dancer, and you pair them with a professional and then they compete against each other. So the parent was the non-professional and the kid was like the dancer, and they would compete against other families. And Philip Lawrence, who is part of Bruno Mars's band, he was our host on it. And then Jenna Dewan, who is one of the biggest names in our dance world and also an actress, one of the leads on The Rookie, and that's how I ended up choreographing for that. And then Dexter Mayfield, who's a huge icon. He's like a body positive icon, but he's done everything. He's been a dancer. He was someone that was mentored by me and grew up with me. I gave him his first dance job ever.
Oh, wow.
And now he's this huge like influencer and body positive icon that has been seen on anything and everything you think of. Like, he's so famous. Like, people just know his face. Like, people freak out over him.
Yeah, you've done that to a few people. But, going through some of this stuff, like, you, from what I read, you had I'm not going to call it a bad experience, but a rough experience filming Circus with Britney Spears.
Yeah.
It took its toll on your body, and that was kind of the turning point for you, right?
Yeah, Circus was my last. So Circus was Britney Spears' music video. That was my last music video I had ever done. For the 2 years leading up to that music video, I was already wanting to stop dancing and transition into choreography because I just didn't have that bug anymore, that performance bug of wanting to perform a lot.
And how old were you?
I was, good question. I had to have been like 30 or 31 because I remember I always had a plan when I came out here. I said the second I turned 30, I wasn't going to be a dancer anymore. I didn't want to be a 30-year-old backup dancer. Not that there's anything wrong with that. People love dancing, and if they can do it forever and that's what they choose to do, amazing. For me, I've always had this, plan of dancing and teaching, then choreographing, then creative directing and directing. So it's always been a thing. So I was probably around 30.
Okay.
30 or 31, but I didn't have a great experience. One, because mind you, I was direct booking everything at the time. I wasn't, and for those of you that don't know what direct book means, that just means I didn't have to audition for these jobs. The choreographer or the artist or, the creative director knew me, and I had already been like a household name as a dancer at the time. So they would just put me on these jobs without having to audition. And so the circus video I didn't have to audition for. But I did go to the audition, and I was just watching because my friends were the choreographers at the time. And I was watching it, and I mean, it was a cattle call. There was hundreds of girls wanting to be in this music video, and girls were crying just to be a part of this music video and crying if they got cut. Britney Spears was their dream. And once I was on the job, it was a very odd experience because this was one of her first music videos back after her hiatus, after the shaving of the head. Her manager and her father kept her away from her backup dancers. And so my experience on that job during the rehearsals was we come in, we have to give a urine sample and be tested for drugs and alcohol. Our bags were searched. This was every single rehearsal. And we would start rehearsal first. Then once she arrived, we were asked to leave the studio so she could walk in. Then we could come back in. We were asked not to make eye contact with her.
Wow.
And mind you, in this music video, there's a whole section where we're all like in this clump, even with her, and like touching on her and like moving and waving and like throwing our hair around. And it's like, how am I supposed to be a part of this moment when you're telling me I can't even look at her?
Yeah.
But I'm supposed to have this like chemistry with her dancing and make this believable. And it's just such an odd experience. And it wasn't her. She wanted so bad to talk to us and socialize. But I think because once upon a time, during her tours and stuff, maybe her and the dancers were getting into stuff. And I think that's when she was probably on drugs and stuff. And so once she came back, they were like, absolutely not. No communicating with dancers, nothing.
Right.
And I was a dancer that never did any kind of drugs. So that was all really new for me and scary for me. 2 of our dancers on that music video got fired because they tested negative. I'm sorry, they tested positive. Sure. Sorry. So they got let go, which really sucks because they were smoking weed, right? Like they're adults. They're in their 30s. They're like, that's what they do when they're home relaxing. They weren't smoking it at the studio. They didn't come to rehearsal high, but they just didn't want anybody that did any drugs, no one that drank alcohol. We weren't allowed to drink alcohol, anything. So, and then once we were on set, during a thing, I remember being in these just tights, just nude tights and in a heel and just a leotard. And it was a circus, so we were dancing on gravel. And I remember, we were going down to our knees and my knees were bleeding. And I just remember thinking like, I just want, like, why am I on this job? I don't even want to be here. Like, why am I going through this? I'm not having a good time.
That's where it really hit you.
And that's when I was like, you know what? There are so many dancers that would love to be bleeding from their knees because they were in a Britney Spears music video. And I just felt like it just wasn't for me anymore. And now I'm just taking the spot of a dancer that could really, be in that spot, who was grateful for it, who was so excited to be there. And I just felt like just because I could do it and I booked the job and I was making money, like I didn't feel good about that. I think someone should have really had the opportunity that really wanted to be there.
Yeah, that's really insightful of you and just in touch with, the way you were thinking and feeling. What I find is really amazing about that story is how times have changed so much. And so back then, when you've got drugs, call it weed. And that affected these young dancers to actually lose their job, where today it's accepted and you can do it whenever, wherever. Things evolve a lot. So that's really a crazy story.
Yeah, there's, artists that come into our jobs, our workplace, our rehearsals now that are smoking weed the whole rehearsal. And we're just there, professionals just not smoking weed and just very sober in the rehearsal space. And, but, they're allowed to, but as dancers, we're not allowed to. So it's kind of, a little odd, but
very much so.
Yeah.
All right. So you were on that job. You said, okay, I think I'm at the end of this ride. And then your first big break, that was, you were 24.
Yes.
And that was Beyonce's job where you choreographed it.
No, that 2004 was when I booked her tour as a dancer.
Oh, it was as a dancer.
That was my first time ever working with her. And it was her first solo tour because she was in Destiny's Child. This was her first tour ever as a solo artist. And there was about 1,000 girls that auditioned, and they were only looking for one. And I booked that job.
Oh, my gosh.
As the one dancer. Yeah.
And was that a direct book, or was that you auditioned
I went
for that?
I went through 3 auditions for that.
Wow.
2 or 3, I want to say.
That had to feel pretty good.
It was insane. And I was only 24. I moved out here when I was 21, and I booked that when I was 24.
Wow.
Biggest job of the year.
So this was all still part of your dance phase.
My dance phase, yeah.
Gotcha. So then what was it? So after that job with Brittany, what was it that you drew the line? You didn't do any other dancing after that?
I did one more job, and it was a feature film I had to. It was What to Expect When You're Expecting. And it was starring Jennifer Lopez and Cameron Diaz and Chris Rock. And the opening scene was called Celebrity Dance Factor. Is basically Dancing with the Stars, but you can't call it that.
Yeah.
And Dwayne Wade was one of the contestants, and I was his professional dance partner. So I basically played myself. And Tice Diorio was the choreographer. Huh. And it's so funny because he tells me this story. So he wasn't one of my best friends yet. He was a huge icon and legend in our business. And I was in Poland at the time teaching classes, and he wanted to find this girl to be Dwayne Wade's hip hop dance partner, and he held an audition. I wasn't here for the audition, but he held an audition. And I remember my friend calling me after that and saying what he had said in the audition. And I guess he taught the choreography, and they were auditioning, and he just wasn't finding what he wanted. And he stood them in a line, and he's like, "You guys, you have to think, what I'm looking for is a Tricia Miranda type. So think of Tricia Miranda, and that's what I want to see." And I remember my friend saying in her head, "Well, then why aren't you just booking Tricia Miranda? Why are we here, But I found out later through him that he tried to, and he called, and this is where agents can get funny. He called my agency, and they were like, "Oh, well, she's booked out. She's in Poland. She's on a job." And in his head, mind you, I'm just teaching. In his head, he's like, "This is a huge feature film. This is a huge deal. Maybe call her to ask her." And they didn't call me. So he found a way to get a hold of me. And he was like, "Hey, I tried hiring you for that." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, I'm on the next flight. I'm coming home. Yes. When do you need me?" "Absolutely." And so I came home, and he direct booked me on that film. And that was the very last dance job I ever did.
Well, that sounds like it was a good
pretty
one.
huge.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no to that.
And it's funny how things come full circle from that, because you've worked with Jennifer Lopez many times since then.
I've choreographed for her as what I was on a tour with her, and then I choreographed for her.
So
she's dated my ex-boyfriend.
Oh, interesting.
I know.
Who is
Casper.
That? Oh.
Yeah.
When were they dating?
Well, they were together for 5 years. I don't know. But I remember being in the tabloids because they tried to spin the story that he was cheating on me with her. Mind you, we had broken up 4 years prior to them ever meeting. But because they had a picture of me like off her shoulder because I toured with her, and then they knew that like that was probably like the only ex-girlfriend of his that they could find. So they spun it in the magazine, and it was like, oh yeah, he was cheating on J-Lo's
so
backup
scandalous.
dancer with J-Lo. And I was like, they even called my dad in Arizona to try to get an interview.
Oh, wow.
Like they asked for pictures. They wanted my dad. They were like, we'll give you $10,000 if you give us pictures of her. And then you know my dad. So he calls me and asks for permission. And I said, Dad, absolutely not. What is wrong with you? No.
He's going to sell you out.
I don't even claim that man. Like, if anyone else asks me, no, I've never in my life dated him.
Oh my gosh,
I
that's
know,
funny.
such a mess.
So cool. You start doing the choreography, and let's just talk a little bit about some of the things you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Like you did the Super Bowl.
I did.
You did the Grammys, the MTV VMAs. I think more than once, right?
I've done multiple of like every award show.
And then in 2016, and a lot of people don't know this because it really never made it to the air, but you had your own show with MTV.
I did.
And it was called Going Off.
Yes.
And I happened to be there when they were doing the filming because Casey was in it and part of it, and it was really, really cool. But tell us what happened with that. So you had been approached about this dance show, and it was yours. This was your show. So tell us a little bit about how that happened.
So at the time, I was a very viral YouTube choreographer. So if you don't know, like Tim Milgram, who's a videographer, and me, we started this whole trend of viral class videos, which was an accident, and that's a story in itself. But Tim and I created the very first viral YouTube video ever. And so once my first dance class video went viral, anything I put out after that continued to go viral like crazy.
What was the first one that went viral?
The first one was Anaconda. It was Nicki Minaj, Anaconda.
And who was in that? Who did you showcase in that? Because
It
this
was-
was at Millennium.
This was
Dance
at Millennium,
Complex
so it was
in
like
North
the
Hollywood.
red wall. Yes, everyone
is the
knows
famous
it as
red wall.
the famous red wall.
So if you're listening to this or you're watching this on YouTube, if you don't know the famous red wall, you're probably not a dancer.
Correct.
But if you are a dancer, you definitely know it.
Correct.
And so this
Even
first
people
one.
that aren't dancers, they just know
know
it
it.
as the famous red wall.
Yep.
At one point, they thought I owned the studio, or they thought Matt Stefanina owned the studio because we had the most like viral dance videos there. But anyways, so because I was this, YouTube sensation, they called it, they approached me. The producers from MTV approached me at one of my classes at Millennium, and they actually approached me about doing a reality TV show. And at the time, I was like, I'm not interested. These are all these kids that take from me. They all trust me. I'm friends with their families. I would never put them on a reality show where we're talking bad about each other. Because, Dance Moms had already been on TV.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just not interested in that. That's not who I am, and that's not what I'm about. And then they were like, okay, well, if you wanted to do anything, what would you want to do? And I was like, it would have to be a documentary style situation where it's something positive. And at the time, they were not really feeling it. They were like, well, we'll think on something and we'll get back to you. And then I want to say, I don't know how long it had been or how much time had passed, but they approached me again. They said, okay, we really want to do something with you. We think that it could be filmed here at Millennium. It's your classes. And you're auditioning these dancers and maybe they can book jobs or whatever. So I end up like coming into the meeting and I was like, here's how this will happen. And this is how I will agree to doing it. I have to be executive producer on it. And I have to approve everything. So I hire what choreographers are coming on. I hire all the dancers. I figure out what the prizes are, what jobs they're, whatever. So I teamed up with Dave Cyrilnik, and if you guys don't know who that is, he is the creator and producer of the MTV Video Music Awards, the creator of TRL, the creator of My Super Sweet 16. He's done everything. Like, he's a huge, huge deal. And he used to be a producer on MTV. And at the time that he did my show, he was one of the executive producers for Radical Media, which is a production company. So I teamed up with him, and we created this entire show where it was basically following me and my dancers around, and my assistants. So Casey Rice, right, your daughter, my mini me is what I call her. She was one of the leads, and then my assistants, Allison and Darian, were the leads, and we had so many others, and we got them a really good rate. One of my assistants was able to buy a car after that, but we filmed it. It was absolutely beautiful. I cried every single episode because I got to go in, and I got to be a part of editing, because that was another thing. I was like, I need to approve these edits. And so I was a part of editing. So I've seen every single episode, and it was the most beautiful thing ever. There was no drama. No one talked about it, but it wasn't like that at all. And it followed these kids around. And so basically what happened, originally it was called Going Off. And then my manager and agents got them to add my name to the title, which is one of the biggest things in the world. Sure. You don't see a lot of shows where your name is on it. And so they got them to change the name to Going Off with Tricia Miranda. So that was kind of where we were at. I did all the voiceovers for it. A year had gone by of us doing voiceovers. The president of MTV either quit or got fired. I want to say he got fired. And so the new people coming in, they shelved about, oh my God, I don't know, like 300 shows or something. Mine was standing. Okay. Mine didn't get shelved at first, but the president was like, well, we want to change the name. We want to rebrand it, whatever. So they ended up changing it to Live and Dance in LA.
Okay.
And then I had to go and do voiceovers for the whole show again, called To Live and Dance in LA.
Right.
And then theme song, everything. And we had a release date, and it was around my birthday. And then the release date came and went. They kept pushing it. Then they were like, we want to piggyback it off of the return of My Super Sweet 16. We think it could be the same demographic. And then they were just like, never mind. After 3 years,
so
they just shelved it. And then they were shopping, like our production company, Radical Media, was shopping it to Netflix, wanted to buy it.
Okay.
The issue with that was they wanted to buy it, and they wanted to push it out within a certain amount of time. The problem is, and we had a full series, 10 episodes. The problem is they couldn't get rights to all the music. They were only able to get rights to about 6 or 7 of the episodes, meaning they didn't have a full series. And unless they got rights to the music, they weren't going to buy it and air it. And so that fell through. And so it just went away, and no one's ever seen it. And it was the saddest thing on earth.
Is there any chance in the future it could be revived?
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah. And all the kids are old now.
Yeah. And tying it into that, it would be interesting.
It'd be so, like, where are they now?
Yeah. Like
so
that.
Crazy.
And being able to use that footage.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
You have worked with so many big entertainers, artists. Who is your favorite to work for?
Oh my gosh. That's so hard. I feel like there's so many.
Pick a favorite. And tell us why.
Pick a favorite. Okay.
I'd say if you're considering joining the AmeriFund team, it's a really good idea.
We as processors at AmeriFund Home Loans support the loan officers in every aspect of the loan once it comes into processing, because we want them out there marketing themselves and originating more loans and supporting more borrowers.
Competitive commission plans are a given, and powerful technology is expected. But what truly sets us apart is our culture. We've built a solid support system for our loan officers. If you're interested in joining the AmeriFund team, go to amerifund.com/careers.
I probably had the best time with Gwen Stefani and the Black Eyed Peas, specifically Fergie, because I also did her solo project. But Gwen Stefani was like the coolest, dopest chick in the entire planet. And that's so funny. Going back to the Chola comment, she at some point, like in the tour, she was looking at me while I was talking to her about the show, and she was like, "You're like a real live Chola, aren't you?" And I just started laughing because her makeup, like what she likes is very similar to how I wear my makeup. And I just started laughing. I was like, "Yeah, a little bit." She was like, "Yeah, I think you are." But she was just so cool and down to earth and very involved. But okay, how could I forget Missy Elliott?
So you're
Missy Elliott.
rethinking this.
Missy Elliott. I forget
Yes.
sometimes. Missy Elliott actually became, I would call her a friend, I think. You know, she still hits me up to this day, like asking for dancers. But, you know, she taught me a lot. I choreograph differently now because I feel like I was brought up underneath her for 6 years. I would work with her. I choreographed, you know, the kids section of her Super Bowl in 2015. But prior to that, I had started choreographing for her artist, Sheraya J. And so when we would create, you know, she would fly me out, and she had this, like, you know, we called it the compound, but she had these homes everywhere. And so I would stay at her house either in Atlanta or I would stay there in Jersey.
Nice.
There was like a recording studio. Like I would be there for like weeks at a time, and we would just create like her and the artist would be in this recording studio. I'd be upstairs just choreographing. I would have my assistants with me, like Darian had gone me. And so this would happen for a long time. I did a lot of music videos with them, and, you know,
Well, you did the Super Bowl with her too.
I did the Super Bowl. Yeah. And she called me directly. Like, she didn't have her manager hit me up. She didn't have anyone call my agent. She literally called my phone and was like, "Hey, so you have the best kids. You're
True.
the only one that I trust hiring kids for me for the Super Bowl."
Why is that, Trisha? Is that because you're the kid choreographer?
I hate you. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
So I got to wait. We got.
You have to tell
everybody
them.
knows. So
Yeah.
So you really never worked with kids. Never did. And you know, who was it that made the introduction again? Shoot.
JT?
JT was. That's right.
JT Solis?
JT Solis. He worked for Studio 13
Yeah.
for Laura's Dance Studio. And Casey was winning all sorts of competitions. But
He
Laura
had been
wanted,
showing me videos of Casey since she was 5.
Yeah.
You have to work with this
Yeah.
kid. You have to. And I'd be like,
That's
look
right,
at videos. I'm
JT.
like, she's so great. She's so dope. But I don't do kids.
I don't work with kids.
I don't work with kids.
I only work with adults.
Yeah.
And he finally convinced you. And Laura wanted to do something special for the coming dance competition year. And she hired you. And that's the first kid you ever worked with, and the first dance that you ever choreographed for a kid. And it was work.
It was your daughter.
And it was my daughter. And that was the first dance video that ever went viral. It was in 2010.
Correct.
And it had, overnight, it had 1 million views.
Correct.
Which even in today's standards is not that common.
Right.
But
Yeah,
this
not
was
overnight.
like early
Not
YouTube.
overnight.
And it was overnight. And there's all sorts of other stories behind that. But that was your choreography.
It was
And-
my choreo. Well, what's funny is that not only was it her first hip hop solo ever, it was my first time ever choreographing a solo ever. Even for an adult, I didn't do solos. Like, I was this like production choreographer. I would choreograph on 120 dancers. Like, that's my specialty. So when they were like, "Can you do a solo for her?" And I was like, "I don't think so. I've never done that." And then Laura, right, was like, "Well, she's never done a hip hop solo. We should just see what happens." And so we got her in the studio, me and my assistant, and we were like, "Who is this kid?" And I remember the first step. The first step is out the gate, already controversial for like a 10-year-old at the time. Now it's like so normal. But it's like this style of dance from Miami that's called riding out. And in layman's terms, it's like booty popping, okay? Like booty popping. And so she was 10. So out the gate, that was the first step that happened. And it went on for a few seconds, just over and over with different hands. And I think that's what caught the attention of everybody.
Yep.
That, oh my God, not only is this child who's only 10 doing this style of dance, but she was doing it better than anybody else. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it was just like, whoa, what is this? And people just were obsessed with this video. Katy Perry was so obsessed with it.
That's right.
She tweeted it out, and that's why it
just blew up.
It just blew up.
And I think actually it was 2012 because Casey was 10, so it was
Okay.
2012.
2012.
But yeah, it's still a super early YouTube.
Yeah.
And so if you think about what that did to even the trajectory of your career, being that then in the, going into the future, Missy Elliott calls you and says, hey, you've got the best kids. You're the best kid choreographer. And so, but for years, you're like, I don't teach kids. I don't teach kids. And
then,
ultimately, you caved in.
And you know what's so funny? Yeah, ultimately, I caved in. And you know what's so funny? After Casey's solo going viral, I continued to work with her. And then I saw this little kid, right, Gabe, who was 2 years older than her, but still very tiny like her. And they took my class one time, and I put them together because they were the only kids in my class, right? Because I only taught adults.
That's right.
And they went for blood. And then I just had this idea. I was like, oh my God, they need to be a duet. I'm going to create something with them. And then I created this little duet called Monster, and that went viral.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, so now I'm just like doing this kid thing. And then so because those two things went viral and I started deciding to work with kids, now I became the choreographer for all kids, and I started choreographing all the H&M commercials every year that involved all the little kids. A Honda commercial with kids. I choreographed what's that? Baby Shark or something. I did a music video with Cardi B for Baby Shark, and those were with kids. Like everything for like a whole 2 years, I was only choreographing children.
So crazy.
I was like, how is this happening?
this
and
happen?
then you're like, well, you're the kid choreographer now. And I was like, I'm not a kid choreographer. So it's just really funny that happened. But then I enjoyed it so much. Now I love them so much. And now I just
embraced it.
mentor all these children.
And that takes us back to the very beginning when you said there are so many of these kids that are now adults that you did teach and choreograph, and they would go to Millennium and take your classes, and you would film them, and they would go off online. And now they're successful adults in the career. And literally it's through that same path that you created for them, which came from being the kid choreographer.
So funny.
Yeah. All right. Another question. You've worked with a lot of artists and a lot of entertainers. Who's your least favorite?
You are not asking me this question.
My advice for someone selling their home: number 1, do it yourself and save. Number 2, use HomePie.
HomePie makes it easy to buy or sell without an agent. I can list a home in minutes and start receiving offers right away from buyers.
When we discovered that we didn't have to lose $40,000 in agent commission just to upsize to a larger home, it was an obvious choice.
List your home for free at homepie.com. Keep your piece of the pie.
I can't say who
You
my
could do
least.
it.
I can't. No, I can't because
You could do it.
she still follows me online.
Oh.
She does. So there could.
So she doesn't know she's your least favorite.
She would never know because I'm such a professional.
Do you still work for her?
I do not, but
Can you give us a hint?
she's one of the biggest stars in the world.
So one of the biggest stars, somebody you've worked with,
Somebody I've worked with.
somebody who's still a star,
Correct. Someone
and not your favorite to work with. Would you work with her again?
I don't know.
Then why don't you tell us?
I don't know because I might work with her again,
Wow, even though you don't like it.
even though
don't
I
like-
don't like it.
Okay, so let's not say who, but why.
Because this person is a very cruel person.
Cruel.
She doesn't...
Like emotionally? Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
She doesn't treat people very well. And I feel like it was more of the way she treated people around me versus the way she treated me directly, that my soul could not bear it. Like, my heart would like just shred seeing the way some people were treated, and I just couldn't be around that energy. I couldn't see people being...
So then let's ask you this, because that's probably not uncommon. Mm-hmm. So what advice would you have for a dancer or a choreographer that's working for somebody, and they need maybe the job, the money, and it's just not a good situation? It's an abusive type of relationship. What do you suggest?
Here's the thing. So the reason why I stayed so long with this artist is because I know how to separate the two. I'm a Capricorn, and I'm very, very business oriented. So for me, I'm zero emotion when it comes to business, and I'm talking about zero. So for me, I always looked at it as someone has to do this job. This is a mega star. Someone has to do this job. So why not have it be me, right? Like, I can handle being here. So why not have it be me? The thing is, though, I don't feel that a dancer should allow themselves to be disrespected and verbally and emotionally abused just because this person has a name and just because you're getting paid. You have to have more integrity than that.
But for somebody that needs the money,
there's so many other ways to make money. But if you are okay with being on that job and you need the money, then you have to understand how to separate it. You have to be okay with knowing, like, you know what? This isn't a personal thing, because most of the time in that situation, it wasn't.
Right.
They don't really know our names. They don't, know us as people. They were just lashing out in the workplace because maybe they're stressed or they're going through whatever. The next day, they super chill. Hey, everybody. Like, don't even think about what happened the day before. So if you can be okay with knowing that, that's why I was okay for so long, because I knew it wasn't a personal.
Yep.
It wasn't something Trisha did. I was the problem solver. I made everything better. I calmed her down, so. I
say this all the time to our salespeople. Mm-hmm. If you are getting somebody that is abusive or not nice or, just altogether, just, that it's not you, it's them. They don't know you.
They don't know you.
So the way they're treating you is not because of you, it's because of them. It's their experience of what's going on in their life, the way they were brought up, or any of those things. It's not you. And if you can separate that, that's great advice.
And here's the thing too, like, most artists are geniuses, and geniuses come with a lot of crazy.
Yeah.
They really do. They are crazy people. Like, Kanye West is a genius, but he is a crazy person. And so if you understand that a lot of artists have a lot of bad days, they really do. Because imagine how you are on your bad day. Someone that isn't a famous mega star and doesn't have the world talking so negative about you that you see daily, and the stress you have to go through to staying on top. I mean, so many things that you have to do as an artist. And think about how you just are on your bad day with something normal in everyday life that happens. Imagine being at that height. And then you're just like this genius, creative person that has to always be winning.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to lash out. You're going to scream, you're going to yell, you're going to cuss, you're going to fire people. because that's just what is going on in your world.
And we see the same thing online, which is another application that your advice should apply to about the criticism and hate online is these people don't know you. In fact, most of them are anonymous. They don't even use their real names. They don't have photos, or they use a fake photo.
100%.
And so to let that affect you, you really got to be able to separate it. Tell us one thing that people don't know about you. What's something you've never shared?
That I'm a really great cook.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a really good cook. People don't think I would be because they know I'm really good at choreographing and doing makeup, but they have no idea that I can really throw down in the kitchen. And I think another thing is too that one of my biggest passions and one of my dreams growing up was to be a prosecutor.
Oh.
So I'm really, 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 really into true crime, like obsessive. And I always try to put myself in the mind of a prosecutor. I try to dig and find information. I try to solve the unsolved case if there is one.
What's your favorite series then?
Oh my God. Well, so everything I watch is like real live, like trials. Like on you, like I watch full trials. Like I'm not someone that watches scripted shows. I like the real, true stories and documentaries of like things that have happened. So, and it's been like that with me forever. I remember when my sister was giving birth during the whole OJ thing. So we were in her hospital room when the chase was happening. And I remember being 13 at the time, and I'm watching the chase on TV in her room. And I had to have it on that channel because I was so involved and so into it. The Menendez brothers was something I'm obsessed with right now.
Yep.
So I have seen every Netflix show, whether it be a documentary, a scripted series, the Ryan Murphy series called Monsters, about them. I've seen, the Peacock special. Like any story that I get obsessed with, I really dig and find everything. But while I'm watching the series, I will also be watching the actual trials on YouTube.
Tricia, I love you.
I love you.
You're such a good friend and such a good role model for my daughter and for so many other kids today, kids that have now become adults. And I want to thank you so much for spending time with me.
Thank you. I love you so much.
Awesome.
So fun.
So if people want to reach you, how can they?
My Instagram is one Tricia Miranda, the number one Tricia Miranda, TriciaMiranda. So I'm on Instagram most of the time. I do have a TikTok, but it's really only to watch makeup tutorials and true crime stuff. So I don't really have anything on that channel. But yeah,
All right.
Instagram.
Through Instagram. All right. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time on The Blueprint.